10 out of 10, 40 out of 40, 95% or better. It feels like nowadays, if a game doesn't score at least a 9, half the community is spitting mad, reprimanding the game media for bias against saying they only love yada, yada, yada. And the other half is like, good, it sucks anyway, cause went woke, and I'm glad your shitty pandering game failed. But as loud as all that noise can get, I truly don't think it's the majority. Just a very loud, very obnoxious chorus of little-minded, smooth-brained individuals. Because I firmly believe that most of us controller holders just want to play really, really good games. And with the hundreds of those that I've played over my increasingly lengthy existence on Earth, sorting them with any real precision is a mounting task. So when I try to build out a greatest of list, genre, console, or even forever ever, I usually end up reaching for some sort of reference. Often it's Metacritic, maybe even Reddit, cesspool as it may be, or sometimes it's just a random Google search leading me to yet another
100 greatest video games of all time. For real this time, we promise we're super serious and this one is totally correct, please believe us.
List. But what happens to those games that fall to page 3, page 11, or even page 99? Well, dear homies, those are the ones that live in your head. The imperfect ones, the ones that, despite all of the noise, all of the discourse, all of the back and forth between 8-hour video essayists and gigachads fighting for control of the gamosphere, they still stick to you, within you. They never seem to go away. Maybe it was the gameplay. Maybe it was the memorable aesthetic and vibe. Maybe it was a story that hit you right in your feels. Or maybe the music was so sublime that it made its way to the top of your daily rotation. Whatever it was that made it special, something about it just would not leave you. We all have a handful of those games. And for your boy, well, Child of Light is exactly one of them. An experience that's been living in my head ever since the first time I locked swords with Aurora and her motley crew of misfits, meanderers, and malcontents. Because while Child of Light is a distant memory to most, a reflection of an Ubisoft long forgotten, a line item they once wrote off on the corporate taxes from a team that long since has moved on. This little indie from one of the biggest companies in the industry reminded me why I love gaming so much when I first played it back in 2017. And nearly a decade later, it's doing it all over again for me. Oh my, how refreshing. So come join your host, the Gamersician, for another lovely trip down memory lane. The Child of Light review. Lego. From giants who make worlds massive in scale came something restrained, almost fragile or frail. Built out from a tool to let devs just create. No checklist design, zero bloating. That's great. It scored pretty well, no 10s in a row. No Game of the Year sweeps, no stealing the show. Not loud enough praise to dominate charts, but for those in the know, it indeed touched our hearts. Okay, this might be a spoiler alert for some of y'all, but
Ubisoft was never an indie studio.
I know. Your mind is likely blown. But while the many thousands of developers and creatives working at Ubisoft Montreal are squarely in the corporate structure and that power struggle, Child of Light felt anything but. A small, creator-driven project that used the UbiArt Framework, Child of Light positioned itself far outside the company's usual blockbuster lane. But back in 2014, Ubisoft had just a little more range and versatility and it does these days. With other indie likes, yeah, that's a new term I just made up. Someone contact my lawyer to copyright that ASAP. You know, things such as Valiant Hearts and Rayman Legends. Right alongside those little morsels landed Child of Light, a beautiful piece of art that still stands as one of the most unique, captivating, and surreal games I've ever played. And I mean, it was made by a team in Montreal, so I'm gonna just go ahead and give it the title of the first amazing FRPG I ever played. Je suis désolé, Expedition 33. The goal was to create a fairy tale-esque playable poem RPG, replete with an interactive painting look and feel.
On Child of Light, we're using the UbiArt Framework engine, which is the engine developed in Montpellier for Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends.
That UbiArt Framework, a proprietary 2.5D game engine built by Ubisoft Montpellier and Michel Ancel, was designed to allow artists and developers to easily integrate hand-drawn art directly into high-definition games. 1080p. The hope was to streamline the process, allowing significantly smaller teams to make scaled-back games at 60 frames per second in that 1080p with all the bells and whistles one would expect from something with the Ubisoft logo. Now, in a Nintendo Life 2013 interview with the creator, Patrick Pleud, the creative director of Child of Light, he stated that the UbiArt pipeline was critical to this game's completion. It allowed the artists to get, right to it. They were able to make levels quickly, integrate concept art right into the game, and worked with enemy and character animations with great haste. Visual references were deliberate and pulled from a laundry list of gorgeous games and IPs. Pleud cited Studio Ghibli, which, hello, we see that spirit of Miyazaki in there, as well as classic JRPGs such as Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy VIII. They'd eventually get some key art from Yoshitaka Amano himself. So, I'd say they were on the right track. Personally, I am always reminded of another super slept on JRPG with a gorgeous watercolor aesthetic. Saga Frontier 2, one of the most absolutely stunning games on the PS1. I just need y'all to know how hard the art and the goddamn music goes in Saga 2. Now, don't tempt me with a review. Don't tempt me. But if you want that, let me know down below. And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe, cause trust, that's another game that straight up lives in my noggin, and I got the remaster. Especially that battle music. Anyway, with Child of Light's writing, this is where things could either go up or sideways for you. Until this point, Jeffrey Yahalem had been writing for major Ubi franchises like Rainbow Six and several of the Assassin's Creed games. Transitioning to the very different Child of Light meant drawing from a very different source of inspiration. Now, as he told GameDeveloper.com, the entire project was written in verse as it was inspired by the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. As a bit of a poet myself, I see many similarities between the classic Samuel Taylor Coleridge poem and the prose of Child of Light. The meter, the couplets, and the overall structure are clearly yanked from this piece. But with Jeffrey having to write this over a 9 to 10 hour game, it can get a little less coherent than the much shorter rhyme. We'll talk more about this delivery style in the story section, but just know it might not work out for everyone. There were definitely times I rolled my eyes at the writing, as it clearly had to force some of its aspects, but I think the fact that it's so unique and novel in the gaming space gave me a decent amount of gravity to let it slide. But boy, did that Ubisoft money come in handy, despite the much smaller scale and team. Cirque du Soleil itself was consulted on the stage direction and costume sensibilities, and Amano, yes, Yoshitaka Amano, created artwork for the deluxe edition that is absolutely beautiful. I guess sometimes it does pay to have a tyrannical overlord with deep coiffures. Believe it or not, they were only given this much creative license and budget because of some of Patrick's previous work. Quote, I didn't want to make Far Cry 3, but they said, Pat, if you do that and help build that brand, I'm going to give you a free shot at the game you want. Really do gotta give it to get it in this industry, it would seem. Now, maybe more important than any other aspect of this game's presentation, though, is Béatrice Martin, better known by her stage name of Coeur the Pirate, composed the entire OST. Man, an exceedingly gorgeous soundtrack alongside the Bratislava Symphony Orchestra with its stripped back, ethereal, and evocative piano lines. It just gives your soul a little light bath. It's truly lovely, and I'm glad that I have this one on vinyl. I really need to sit down and just chill with it very soon over a nice, like pain au chocolat. Child of Light was initially released on April 30th, 2014 on the PC, PS3, and PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Wii U, with a PS Vita version that popped up July 1st of 2014. It would also eventually drop on the Switch in October 2018. The game sold for $15 at launch and was one of the first digital-only releases from Ubisoft. Now, looking back at my trophies, I would first play Child of Light right around my 31st birthday, back in September of 2017. This was a huge year for me with my love of the media, as playing Bloodborne for the very first time back in 2016 had just brought me back to the gaming world in time for some truly incredible, life-changing experiences and games. The likes of, Shovel Knight, Horizon Zero Dawn, Nier Automata, Wolfenstein 2, Cuphead. 2017 is truly one of my best years in gaming personally, and Child of Light lives very fondly right alongside the juggernauts. But while I adored Child of Light, it did receive relatively mixed reception rather than a unanimous one. With an 83 critic rating and an 80 user rating on OpenCritic, Child of Light ranks in the 89th percentile of games scored on the platform. Similarly, Metacritic shows scores of 82 and 80 for critics and users, respectively. Individually, IGN gave it a 9.3, praising the gorgeous art, exemplary combat, and handcrafted identity. No RPG fans should miss Child of Light, wrote Vincent Ingenito. Quite a few critical reviews fell in that 8 range, with Eurogamer handing out that exact score, calling it a polished gem that proved Ubisoft should still take creative risks. PC Gamer called it beautiful yet shallow, and Polygon actually echoed this. They praised the presentation, but said the game systems and pace never quite lived up to its look and sound. Now, as far as sales go, it seems to have recouped the dollars that it put out, with director Patrick Plurd stating it wasn't quite as profitable as an Assassin's Creed game, go figure, but that it made enough to fund a sequel. Or, hilariously, quote, if it had been my company, I would be driving a Ferrari and doing donuts. I like this guy. Made with only a couple of million and a max of 40 people working on it at any given time, I wish it could have received a sequel. And with owner estimates ranging from 573,000 to 1.6 million on Steam alone at $15 a pop, well, you can do the math. And you have to imagine that it sold at least 2 million total across all available stores. In 2019, Plurd stated that, to his knowledge, no sequel was in development, and the core team had left the company many moons ago. He expressed doubt that this would ever come to fruition, as Child of Light is not really something that they seem to want to make. We can make money out of it, but you can make more money elsewhere. That's the problem of not being independent while making this. So while it may have been a bit of an indie-like, it's only close by nature and clearly not by nurture.
Damn you, Ubisoft!
Mailed. A tale told in prose, soft-spoken and meek, of kingdoms and queens, of mice that'll squeak. A mother is gone, though no one says why. A father who falters while his daughters fed lies. Yet she learns how to fight, turning fate on its head, finding power in friendship. What a journey they tread. Child of Light begins in 1895 Austria, where we find a sickly young daughter of a Duke, Aurora. Immediately, she falls ill. Much like the classic hero's journey structure that it's clearly inspired by, we gotta face a few problems up front. After slipping into a deep sleep so deep that even her father thinks she's dead, she wakes up somewhere else. Upon replaying this game, I was reminded a bit of another indie game that I absolutely adore, Spiritfarer. Now that one's actually indie, and it stars a singular young female lead in a foreign world that's dealing with grief, and the parallels really struck me this time through. Anyway, Aurora awakens to find herself in Lemuria, a storybook land that is not her own. Fun fact, Lemuria isn't just a pretty fantasy name that Ubisoft pulled out of their ass or some mashup of words. It was actually a 19th century scientific hypothesis about a lost continent, originally used to explain why lemurs showed up across places like Madagascar and India. Now, science and the study of plate tectonics have made this idea an impossibility, but by that point, the idea had already escaped the lab and wandered into myth, where Lemuria became this mystical lost civilization tied to spiritualism, Atlantis-style ancient world theories, and even Tamil cultural traditions. But in this version of Lemuria, the sun, moon, and stars are all missing, taken by the Black Queen Umbra, who has plunged the whole world into a darkness. So now Aurora, a child who is just trying to figure out why she's no longer in Austria, is tasked with potentially the most fairy tale side quest ever given. Defeat the queen, recover the celestial bodies, restore light to Lemuria, and find your way home to your dying father. No pressure. Shortly after, Aurora meets Ignicolus, a tiny glowing firefly who becomes her guide, helper, and puzzle-solving little buddy. He is a representation of the first light Aurora sees in this world, and that all hope is not lost. She's not alone either. Upon stumbling upon the Lady of the Forest, we learn that Lemuria is in fact real. A distorted, connected reality to Austria, separated simply by a mirror. Aurora learns that Lemuria was once ruled by the Queen of Light, who mysteriously disappeared. In her absence, the Black Queen rose to power with her daughters, using dark creatures and magic to conquer the land and steal all of the damn lights. We receive the stars from the Lady, which grants us wings. I love this though, because it's the only mobility upgrade you get, but it completely opens up the navigation and movement. In that moment, you're like, oh shit, the world is mine. Now, after she gives us a flute, we're told to seek help on our journey. This help comes in the form of a wayward wizard, a mighty mouse, a couple of strange jester siblings, one who refuses to rhyme at that, a young Phaeacian girl who also is forced to process her own grief and loss, a shunned sentinel that reminds me a whole lot of Tam Tam from Sham's, Tam Tam from Sam's show, and a seemingly helpful sister who might not quite be as helpful as she seems. But yeah, we run into our stepsis Nora, who claims she was also pulled into Lemuria through the mirror. But after leading Aurora away from her companions, Nora reveals the truth. Her real name is Nox, and she's one of Umbra's daughters. Even worse, Aurora's stepmother is Umbra herself. Classic evil step-family behavior. Very subtle. No notes. Now, Umbra tried to kill Aurora, but the crown her father gave her protects her. Since Umbra can't hurt her directly, she throws Aurora and her friends in prison. There, Aurora's flute reaches Oangus. I've never tried to say his name. The prison guard guy, the one that looks like Tam Tam. We're gonna call him Tam Tam. Who helps her escape after she promises to defeat the Black Queen. Aurora and her party reclaim the moon from her other stepsister, Crepusculum. Then travel beneath the sea where they save Gin's village from a giant ogre and eventually defeat Nox to recover the sun. Then Umbra offers Aurora the most painful bargain of this story. Give up the stars and the moon, she can return home to save her father. After thinking, Aurora refuses because saving her father would mean abandoning the entirety of Lemuria to their darkness. Her father passes, the protective crown disappears, and Umbra finally kills her. Again, this game is beautiful, but it ain't playing with us. Now, before dying, Aurora grabs the sun and falls into a rising waterfall. Her body is carried back by fireflies to the altar, where the Lady of the Forest revives her through the power of the flute, the celestial bodies, and the wishes and prayers of her friends. Aurora briefly reunites with her mother, the Queen of Light, in the light space, and then heads off to defeat Umbra once and for all. After freeing Lemuria, Aurora returns through the mirror to the real world, to Austria, and finds her hometown being swallowed by a flood. So, instead of restoring everything back to normal, she saves the people by bringing them into Lemuria. Kind of biblical when you think about it. And by the end, only a small island remains where her old home once stood. But Lemuria begins to grow again, which I think is this game's real emotional thesis. Loss will change everything. It will. They will never be the same. But life can still grow somewhere new. Something positive and new can come from it. The story of Child of Light is powerfully wrapped up in familiar fairy tale tropes, but ultimately it is one of loss, betrayal, grief, and eventually overcoming. It's a simple tale, but that doesn't mean it's shallow, because underneath all of the storybook imagery, the lyrical metering, and the relatively flat character ideas, is a brilliant anecdote about coping with grief and moving on. That specific disorienting feeling where it's almost like the world continues to spiral around you, where gravity doesn't seem to work, but it just doesn't feel like it's yours anymore. If you've ever lost anyone important, I feel like you've experienced this. Aurora starts the game by losing everything familiar: her home, her father, her sense of safety, and I suppose technically, her life. And when she wakes up in this foreign land, the world around her is reflective of that loss. The sun, the moon, the stars are all gone. The light is both literally and metaphorically gone. She's enshrouded in darkness. And what I love about this story is how it both leans into those expectations of a fairy tale and bends them ever so subtly. Yeah, you have the wicked stepmom, the evil queen, the magic mirror, and ultimately the battle between dark and light. But what makes the tropes sway until they almost break is the gravity of the scenario and how it all eventually lands. Aurora isn't just trying to get home. She has to get back to her father before grief itself consumes him, and she doesn't make it. By the time she does, her homeland is nearly completely swallowed up by a flood. When unfortunate circumstances take the people who matter most to us, we can't just show up and expect everything to be instantly better. Her life is permanently altered. But what she chooses next is what matters the most. She chooses to move on and live her own life. This game isn't here to convince you that there's a happily ever after. You gotta go pick up the pieces and make really, really tough decisions. That is the difference between escapism and transformation. Darkness is real and so is loss, but it doesn't get to take all of our light. That's beautiful. Now, I told you I would bring up the rhyming, and listen,
I get it.
this game for real commits to the bit. Every conversation is written in this storybook rhyme scheme, and depending on your tolerance for that kind of thing, it's either charming, immersive, and completely in line with the fairy tale tone, or it is going to make you want to point your controller into the nearest enchanted lake. There are times when the writing gets mega messy. Yeah, you're making a bit of a sacrifice of clarity for style points, and there are definitely times where the metering is completely off. There aren't enough syllables, or there are too many. And then there's these weird half rhymes that not even Black Thought can make float in a bar. But you know what? Clunky or not, it gives the game an identity unlike nearly any that I've ever played. It makes Child of Light feel like a story being written, being recited to you from an old book, not just another RPG script chopped into dialogue boxes. The language, the art, the music, and the structure are all aiming at that same target. And when a game is this unified in tone, I can forgive some of the awkward phrasing. Some. Yes, it's occasionally corny, but when it works, I think it's on. The characters are a bit of a mixed bag for me too. Many are really one note, but the way things are set up, it kind of reminds me of another tragic JRPG story, Valkyrie Profile. Aurora is a bit of a Lilith, helping each of them with some problem. Small in the case of Robert trying to get at his little mouse baddie love interest, or heavy as fuck as Gen loses her entire village, parents, and we're tasked with confirming their deaths and giving her the news. Rubella is a clown trying to find her troop, and she absolutely refuses to speak in rhyme, which characters constantly call her out for. It's pretty funny at first, but admittedly, gets a little old. Eventually, she finds her brother Tristus, who has that Tears of a Clown feel. Shout out to Smokey and the Miracles. Tam Tam might be my favorite though. His disgraced warrior archetype really nails it for me. The shame, the duty, the loyalty. Classic big and strong fella with a heart of gold. The villains are appropriately villainous with very little in the way of nuance, but what the characters lack in a soft touch, they more than make up for in heart. You really do root for this melancholic band of buddies, even if they could have used a little more scenery to chew on. It's a sub 10-hour RPG, okay? They only had so much time. The story of Child of Light is a big reason why this game lives on in my head. And it has sat with me all these years later. And potentially the most explicit example of the flawed yet brilliant nature of the entire thing. It's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be. Each frame like a painting barely contained, with colors that bleed like emotions unchained. Soft edges and light, a beautiful flow. Elegance and sorrow, both stepping in tow. Child of Light is a gorgeous video game. In my notes, my second bullet point was simply,
This game is fucking beautiful.
From the very first second the intro starts up and you see the ink blots hit the canvas, you know this is going to be a visual feast. It seriously feels like someone cracked open an old, dust-covered fable from off the bookshelf. The backgrounds bleed into one another. They move with the ease of a watercolor stroke across canvas. All of the edges are soft and painterly. The world feels fragile, lived in. And that is no accident. That Ubisoft framework that it was built off, the same tech family behind Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends, went in a bit of a different direction than those more cartoonish games. The look of Child of Light is way more delicate and soft. UbiArt let the team bring the artist's work much more directly into the game, which is why Child of Light has a nearly concept art look to many parts of its world and overall appearance. Which is important because the art design and art direction provide much of the emotional lift for this game.
The art pipeline is fantastic. The concept art is the game art. We just cut it up and it's in the engine that afternoon.
It allowed us to realize that dream of being able to play on a living painting and see the end of the artist in the game.
Everything really does feel like it's floating in this game, both literally and figuratively. Aurora floats through space. Igniculus comes up behind her. So many background elements move and sway in the breeze. This giant Gaia-like tree creature moves elegantly like a bunch of parts drawn and overlaid in motion. The world feels suspended in a real space. Lemuria really feels like a storybook brought to life. This game all about grief and is rife with that feeling of suspension, weightlessness. There's a feeling you have when you find out someone you love has passed or an old friend has fallen ill. Like everything could float right out of your grasp. I feel like it's channeling that emotion, but also the euphoric feeling of grand adventure and joy. It simulates the dichotomy of life in a really touching and poignant way. The game's visual inspiration also explains why this doesn't really feel like a standard fantasy RPG. The team pulled from Golden Age illustrations and artists like John Bauer, Arthur Rackham, and Edmund Duloc, while also drawing influence from Yoshitaka Amano himself. Yeah, that one, the one that did the art for the deluxe edition, and, some other stuff. Which makes perfect sense once you clock the thin line work, delicate bodies, theatrical poses, and the way the characters stand as symbols and less as literal beings. When you look at Aurora's red hair, it stands like the flame of hope. She can barely move the giant sword she's been given at such a young age, but still she fights. And as she continues to grow, her body changes. Now she swings a sword with power and might. The team's goal was to make a simple design that was easy to understand immediately, yet could carry a 12-hour-long game. While far from the technical masterpiece and showpiece that many of 2014's most impressive games were, the Alien Isolations and PTs of the world, the artistic flair gave Child of Light an identity that was unique then and still stands out to this day. Strong art direction will always age better than raw technical flexing because it's truly timeless. Patrick Plurd said in a Gaming Bolt interview that when you're making a 2D game, if the art direction is unique, the technology never really gets old. I'd say this game is a great example of that. The watercolor style gives the game a vibe that doesn't require modern lighting or ray tracing to stand up to additional scrutiny. It's the way it uses literal light and darkness to illuminate your surroundings, the nearly uncanny movements of the multi-sprite enemies, and the brilliant use of negative space to draw your eyes around a screen filled with both beautiful and grotesque things. The visuals have a way of disarming and drawing you into this charming world, vibrant as it is. Of all the parts of Child of Light that could use a little bit of polishing, I wager that art direction and visual style alone uniquely as being quite literally perfection. A true joy to look at. A clever spark, a graceful frame, a battle dance of light and flame. Yet once the rhythm shows its hand, you wish the systems had room to expand. Child of Light has some great gameplay systems that, unfortunately, usually do not go far enough. Like a couple more iterations may have been needed to make something special. But the stuff it does get right goes over really, really well. Moment-to-moment combat is one of my favorite parts of this game. It's turn-based, but with that grandeur twist. The whole system runs on a timeline at the bottom of the screen where every character and enemy moves towards that turn. Once you hit the casting zone, you have your chance to act. Certain actions take longer or shorter to act out, and if you get hit before the action completes, you're probably pushed back and interrupted. This works for both enemies and your units, so you begin to really feel that push and pull of the speed of actions, as well as what it appears your foe is doing at any given moment. Can you stop an enemy before they use a powerful AoE? Can you delay the boss long enough to squeeze out one last turn, allowing your best striker to get their big attack off? Will you risk a slower spell, or do you need an action to happen right away? It gives every fight a rhythmic quality without it being an actual rhythm game. And when things are getting a little tight, you can use Igniculus's limited light energy to blind your enemies, slowing down how fast their bars build, often leading to a to-the-wire moment of you getting your moves off just in time to knock them back. He can also be used to heal and give some MP back to allies via the bushes that surround every battlefield, which is a nice touch for some much-needed healing in a pinch. Most of your party members fall into a clearly defined trope, and you'll move between attack, spell, action, and item usage to command the playing field and to defeat increasingly difficult foes. The way the game likes to mix up faster attacking enemies with heavier hitters / buff spells can definitely keep you on your toes and wondering who you should focus on next. It can become really frustrating if you get stuck in a bad attack pattern, being pushed back at the worst possible moment. But I mean, you can do the same to your enemies, so I appreciate that they don't slant the board towards you too much. You can also swap characters at any given time, similar to like Final Fantasy X. With only 2 characters out at once, your options are pretty limited, and that leads me to a big issue I have with the combat overall: how small everything feels. Build choices are super contained, and the spells and moves you get are often just upgrades of the ones that you started the game with. Luckily, the game doesn't outstay its welcome because it's a system that skims the surface of greatness, but often just plays there. Speaking of builds and Final Fantasy X, the upgrade system is pretty reminiscent of the sphere grid. Like if the sphere grid was drawn up by Dr. Seuss. You'll open your upgrade screen and think, yo, that's a lot of options. But it really kind of just boils down to like 4 or so paths per character that lead to more powerful versions of a lot of the stuff that you start out with. As you level up, you get points that you can use to unlock abilities, upgrades, and stat boosts, which, yeah, look sick at a glance, like I said. But after moving a couple of characters around, it becomes super straightforward. It's functional, but lacks expression or real intrigue beyond the first pop that you probably had. Probably just start down one path, stay on it, get a powerful move, and let the game do the rest. It's fine, but far from brilliant. The Oculi system is as close as you get to gear customization. There's no traditional gear in this game, but you do get these gemstones that characters can use to give them bonuses. You can find various smaller versions of these around the world, but these can be combined in groups of up to 3 to make larger or different stones. Different oculi can affect attacks, defense, elemental properties, and support effects. Even change your ability to recover time or to cause knockback. Basically, baby's first materia. And you know what? I dig that. But again, this game could have pushed it a lot harder in this area. The idea is clean, but it never really materializes. Strong seasoning, but it needed a stronger dish. I will say that the exploration is particularly gratifying. You'll be flying around through various caves, forests, villages, and cliffsides, grabbing treasure chests, solving very light puzzles, and looking for little nooks and crannies off the beaten path. The art is so good, it just keeps you moving around and vibing. It's almost meditative at times, and I think if this game didn't have such an inviting look, it would get a little more stale. Is this a mechanically dense, hyper-varied exploration game like a Hollow Knight or a Symphony of the Night? Nah, way more gentle than that. And early on, it's just enough. But over time, I did start to wish for a bit more here as well. Once you have that rhythm down, it doesn't really evolve very much. It's pleasant, but doesn't provide much surprise. You could pretty much say that about every part of this gameplay loop, if I'm being honest. God damn it, could it use a map? Not just the broad overworld one, but one that I could actually appreciate the little places I've been and know what it is I still need to explore. The world may be beautiful, but it's very easy to go back down a path and then bounce back wondering, hey, did I go up, or do I need to check this place still, or
Am I missing something?
Just another little piece that was lacking. So overall, yeah, it's a fun game to play. Combat is solid, the timeline system gives battles a sixth sense of pacing, Igniculus keeps you involved enough between actions, and the interrupt mechanics make even a quick fight feel more tactical than they might appear on the surface. Exploration is relaxing and chill. Oculi are cool, upgrades are cool. Every system is like, cool. It's all good and does more as a cohesive whole than the parts might sound. But overall, it lacks the punch that could really have separated this game more from the pack. I'd imagine it's the biggest proponent for the 7 to 8 out of 10 level scores that the game initially received upon release. All cool. A song may speak where words fall through, in shades of gold and moonlit blue. The silence hums, the piano sighs, and Lemuria dreams with open eyes. Okay, I lied. The art direction is pretty much flawless, but this OST is bulletproof. Composed entirely by Béatrice Martin, better known as Coeur the Pirate, a Montreal singer, songwriter, and pianist who was already known for this intimate, melancholic, piano-driven style well before Ubisoft brought her into the fold. And what a brilliant move this was. This soundtrack transcends and moves beyond the vintage fantasy RPG music in the broad sense. It's every bit as delicate and evocative as the art on display. From pretty far outside the usual video game composer lane, she brought a classically trained, full-fledged career as a singer-songwriter to the table. Having grown up with Final Fantasy and Pokemon, she also has stated her appreciation for Journey. The overall score is built around Aurora's theme, and that theme becomes the emotional core of this entire thing. Parts of it feel like a lullaby, parts of it feel like a memory, parts of it remind me a little bit of this banger from Troll 2. But really, it is such a beautiful, somber, reflective, and dare I say it, grief-stricken piece. It really feels like facing loss and the subsequent travails, ultimately to overcome. One of the most important things Coeur the Pirate said about the soundtrack was that it was designed to grow alongside Aurora. Early on, the cues are relatively gentle, soothing, almost like a calm ocean. But as Aurora grows and matures, the oceans turn to raging torrent. Shit goes awry. It becomes more intense, orchestral, and dramatic. But what is really cool is that the score did not begin as this giant orchestral beast from Jump. The early idea was much smaller: piano, cello, guitar. That kind of nostalgic, intimate palette. Then as the game's battles and boss references became more intense, music expanded into a full orchestra and choir, including work from the Bratislava Symphony Orchestra. It starts soft, then it grows its wings. Kind of like our main character. Pilgrims on a Long Journey starts things off so lovely. A soft, nearly hesitant piano line turns more active as strings begin to swell, giving the proceedings more weight. And what a reflection of the cast to come. Pilgrims. That word was chosen specifically. Everyone is out here simply trying to find their way. Wanderers seeking peace. And yeah, Aurora's theme really is beautiful. This is honestly the first thing that popped in my head for years when I thought about this game leading up to this replay. It's just something special, man. So memorable and empty, laid bare. The combination of big percussion at the right moments alongside the strings and plucky guitars just, oh man, what a beautiful track. Jupiter's Lightning is one of the sickest battle themes ever. The perfect combination of aggressive and triumphant. It creates such a cinematic feel during combat. Those string lines set against the pounding orchestral drums, they set such a tone. Has this way of lining up with big moments during fights when the tides are turning back and forth. All the boss themes rock. I love dark creatures, replete with staccato strings and giant cymbal swells, but Metal Gleamed in the Twilight might be my favorite. There are so many amazing phrases throughout this soundtrack. The way this track weaves from militaristic snares, swinging off of piano and string lines that will live in your psyche for months to come, into these larger-than-life brass segments against a nearly woozy kick pattern. This really elevates the game's tone in the moments of tight combat into something so tense and dense, you'll be sweating out of your palms. But for as big as the boss fights can get, tracks like Patches of Sky feel uniquely transparent and gentle. It's like this flickering light that wants to be more certain of itself than it is, but it's trying. And while a song like Off to Sleep wouldn't usually land super hard with me, I love how the game avoids all lyrics until the end. We've heard choirs chant, but we haven't heard an utterance in the English language until Coeur blesses us with a massively poignant track against stark, washed-out rhythm guitars and reverb-drenched vocals. Béatrice beautifully sings,
"And I'll be waiting for the light that guides us through the worst of nights, and I'll be waiting for the sign you're coming back and you have found your path."
Child of Light's OST has such a unique sense of scale. It gets huge at times, but it's usually so down-tempo and barren, in the best way, reflecting the many ways that grief shows up in our lives, both the good and the bad and everything in between. That's why I own this on vinyl. Y'all know I had to. Now, sound design is a little harder to talk about because, come on, the music is the star of this show. But that doesn't mean the sound design isn't doing at least a little work. Audio director Hugo Bastien described the sound design's goal as creating something organic and natural, but still magical. I'd say they succeeded. Nothing is really overpowering, but it's airy and soft. Some sparkles here and there. Spells and attacks have enough impact to be read clearly, but they are not crunchy or aggressive in the way a darker role-playing game might be. The UI sounds, the collectible sounds, the environmental ambiance, all of that feels like it was designed to sit within the watercolor ink rather than to overpower it. It's cohesive and smart. Nothing to really stand out, but it does what it needs to. The music is really stellar, and the overall sound package is just spot on. Some lights may dim, some stars may fade, some dreams grow worn against time's slow blade. But tales that glow through grief and night can still return as a child of light. Nearly a decade after first playing Child of Light, I don't think this game has lost anything that made it stick with me for all this time. If anything, revisiting it made me appreciate what that is even more. Cause Lord knows that this game is not perfect. The combat is fun, stylish, and clever, but it doesn't go quite as far as I wish it did. The upgrade system looks like it's about to be exceptional, only to turn out to be an ultimately shallow hallway structure with not much to add to the overall gameplay. The Oculi system is cool, but more of a dash of seasoning instead of a side dish to the meal. Exploration is beautiful and relaxing, but over time, it needs a bit more variety. But even with all of these games' shortcomings, it has held up in many places that matter. The art is absolutely gorgeous. The music is magnificent, evoking a unique feel compared to many RPGs of its era, and well, period. The story is every bit as disarming and powerful, a true reflection of grief, loss, and moving on. Even if the prose might be a bit of a thorn to some, I enjoyed it, mostly. So while the whole thing was made by Ubisoft, of all companies, it feels a lot cooler than that. A lot smarter than what they would typically churn out. Certainly at this point. And for $15, Child of Light showed that even the megalists in the industry could take small chances, shirking the massive open worlds, tower jumping, and maps full of icons for something quiet and tasteful. And tasty. A poetic, side-scrolling fairy tale RPG about grief, light, loss, darkness, and healing. Not to be 90 hours long, not to become a paid service platform, not to sell a bunch of battle passes or some other bullshit. Just a whole slice of brilliance with a clear identity and feel. Is Child of Light still worth playing today? Yeah, absolutely. And I believe it deserved better. While it was received pretty well in its time, it really should have gotten that sequel or prequel I read about in my research. A more operatic approach with a more mature storyline, explaining the startings of Lemuria, could have counted me in, because I think this team could have pushed this shit a lot further. A more elaborate build structure, gameplay variety, party dynamics, and exploration, would have made this game something special. More robust systems too. Child of Light feels like both a complete game, but also a bit of proof of concept. One that never got to be built upon, and that's a damn shame. I would take another one of these in a heartbeat. In a modern games industry where the indie game is all the rage, imagine this team getting back together and actually, doing it independently. Seems like it's not in the cards, but
Let a brother hope.
A game that is assured, doesn't overstay its welcome, and comes with the poetic punch for a dozen hours is what this Gamersician needs. Try not to forget the games that live on in the latter pages of your gaming history. The ones with some rough edges and lines, some weird quirks. If you remember them fondly, make sure you keep those memories strong. Those heartfelt and refreshing games are what this passion and pastime are built upon. So yeah, Child of Light is both an 8 out of 10 and somehow greater than that number. I'm just really glad I took the time to revisit it, and I'm sure in another decade or so, I'll still be remembering this little adventure of Aurora and friends just as fondly as I do now. Maybe tighten that prose up next time though, you know? Yeah? Meter matters. Thanks for watching. Have you played Child of Light? Or maybe even some of the other UbiArt games like Rayman or Valiant Hearts? What are some of your favorite imperfectly perfect games that really lived on in your soul? Let me know down below. And as always, like if you like, subscribe if you love, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't let nobody dim your light. You heard?
Peace.